Once you've registered and created your profile, go to concept.eastmfg.com, enter your username and password, and click Login. You will be taken to the Configurator homepage. As a general note, all pages in the Configurator have a similar layout. The tabs across the top allow you to navigate to specific sections of the site. The dark blue My Home tab is the page we're on right now. The Configurations tab takes you to a directory of all the configurations you've generated. Similarly, Quotes and Orders takes you to directories of quotes you've generated and orders you've placed. Just below those tabs, in the blue bar, you'll find a search field to quickly locate any configurations, quotes, or orders in your account. Along the left, where it says where you would like to begin, is a secondary navigation. The first section labeled Create allows you to create a new configuration, quote, or customer profile. And the second section allows you to view existing configurations, quotes, orders, or customer profiles. From the home page, you have two options to start creating a new configuration. Click the side navigation's Create Configuration is a one-click method that takes you directly to the start point of a new configuration. Or you can click the Configurations tab at the top of the page, which takes you to the Configuration homepage we showed you earlier. Along the blue navigation bar, you'll notice three tabs I didn't mention earlier: Create Configuration, Column Options, and Filter Off. Note, you can find out how to use the column options and filter off on features in our Facts section. Now, let's click Create Configuration to start building a new configuration. Beneath Configuration Properties, you'll see Product Categories and a picture of a dump trailer. Since we're going to be building a dump trailer, I'm going to go ahead and click the dump trailer's link. Eventually, there will be more options to choose from, but for now, it will just offer frame dump trailers. So now, I'll click on the Frame Dump Trailers link, which will take me to a Configuration Properties page for the new configuration. This is where you would name the configuration. We'll call this one a 34-foot stock unit. The second field is where you would assign the customer. You have the option of either selecting an existing customer or creating a new one, but you also have the option of selecting TBD or to be determined. Assigning a customer is not mandatory to start a configuration. Once you've done that, click Continue. This takes you to the start of the configuration process. From this point on, you will be guided through the process by a set of instructions and questions. The first question pertains to the trailer design. The answer to this question determines the questions that follow. For demonstration purposes, we're going to select Genesis Design and click Continue. The next question asks you to select the type of Genesis design. Note, if you see these stars on a question, an answer is required to proceed. So if you try to advance beyond this point without making a selection, a pop-up window will appear reminding you that an answer is required to proceed. Click OK and make your selection. In this case, I'm going to select Inboard. The next page relates to the dimensions of the trailer, which determines how the drawing will be laid out. We start with the most basic dimension so we can complete the drawing before adding smaller items and accessories. Today, we'll be building a pretty standard unit with a 34-foot length. We're going to select one of the two available body widths. 102 inches with a standard bulkhead design and a sheet and cross member floor. Below body dimensions is sidewall dimension options. This section has some dynamic inputs that will update as you make selections. You see this box here at the very top where there's nothing selectable? You can't enter anything into it, but as you make selections, this will change. We'll select height of aluminum at 60 inches. We're going to leave the top rail field as is and select a 4-inch piece of wood for the top sidewall. You'll see that this top field is now adjusted to reflect the height of the wall based on the selections we've just made. As we've been going through this process, you may have noticed along the right a pricing section. It automatically updates based on your selections as you work your way through the configuration process. By the end of the configuration process, you will have a list price available to review along with the final weight of the trailer. Please note that it's very important to save your progress frequently throughout the configuration process. It's also very important to remember that while navigating the interface to never use the browser's back button, but instead always use the navigation buttons along the bottom of the interface: Previous, Save, Cancel, and Continue. Using the back or forward buttons in your browser will refresh the page, causing you to lose any progress you've made since your last save. Let's click Continue to move on to the next set of questions. This brings us to the page related to chassis options. You'll see a lot of these questions have been set to their default or base unit selections. For example, a 17-inch aluminum chassis is our default chassis beam for frame dump trailers. Almost all the questions or fields in the configurator will be pre-populated to a base unit selection until you make selections that mandate otherwise. Let's go down to chassis length. We've selected a 34-foot body, so we want to select a 33-foot 6-inch chassis because we have a 6-inch overhang, and this will keep the bulkhead and the chassis flush. The rest of the selections in this area looks about right, so I'm going to jump down to the first text field or text box that you'll encounter during the configuration process, and that's the height of the fifth wheel. I'm going to enter a value of 49 and click Enter. You'll see when I click off of it, I don't get any messages. If I had specified a fifth wheel height that was out of what's acceptable given my previous selections, a pop-up window would appear giving you the acceptable range for this selection. In this case, it's 45 to 54 inches, so I'm fine with 49 for this one. Kingpin to center of rear axle is another dynamic input that's automatically updating based on the decisions we've made for this chassis. So as you make changes, you'll see this number change, but we're going to stick with the 21.5 inches. Here's another required input. This is asking for the number of axles we want. We'll select 3 for this unit and leave our spray skirt as standard. Let's click Continue. All of the fields on this page have been defaulted to standard values, which will leave us as is, so I'll click Continue again. This next page is the first time you'll encounter the drawing of the trailer. You can see all of the questions we've answered up to this point have determined a number of dimensions incorporated into the drawing. As we make changes, the drawing will change dynamically in real time. The first selection we're going to make on this page is rear axle type. We're going to select all air suspensions for this trailer, so we'll select Air Non-Liftable. You'll notice that each time you make a selection, the drawing refreshes. I'll do another Air Non-Liftable for axle number 2. Now, if I change axle 1 to an air liftable, you'll notice that reflected in the drawing after it refreshes. We're going to leave our distance between axles 2 and 3 the same, at 52 inches, which is the default, but we're going to change the distance between axles 1 and 2 to 72 inches. When we click off of it or click Enter, you'll see the axle has moved forward to reflect the new dimension. Let's click Save again to save our progress, and then hit the Continue button. Now we're presented with a set of questions for each of the axles we've selected. This is called the iterated input. It's a good idea to be very thorough in this section because there are a lot of questions here, and while you may have selected certain inputs for one axle, they may not apply to the other axles, so you should make sure to go through each of the 3 axles with equal care. You'll notice most of the fields are already filled in, but there are some blank fields. Those are unselectable until you make the required input selections ahead of them. We'll leave our rear axle with our default inputs. When we select our input for our rear suspension, in this case, our standard Hendrickson suspension, it's going to fill in the rest of the questions with default values and any other applicable values that you can select. Let's go down to the front axle, where I'm going to select the standard lift axle, and you'll see it does the same thing. I'll save this and hit Continue. This is the area where you'll select the controls you want, so go ahead and select the appropriate controls for the selected suspensions and, if necessary, an enclosure for the switches. Hit Save and Continue. For the remaining pages, there are no required inputs, and the default values will suffice for this particular configuration. So for the next few pages, I'm just going to go through and click Continue until you get to this page titled Ready for Configuration. Having answered all the questions, you're now at the end of the configuration process. Click the Configure button and you'll be taken to what's called the specification summary or spec summary. At this point, it's not very well organized and there's no official document to give the customer. It's just a record of everything we've selected during the configuration process. Clicking on the Sales Bill link on the left side navigation will take you to a screen with all the same information you saw displayed along with the right side of the screen during the configuration process. At the bottom will be the configuration's total list price and weight. There's also a printable version you can access by clicking on this link here. It will open in your browser. You can also view the final drawings. Just click on this link here, and a PDF document will open in your browser. Closing the tab will bring you back to the configuration results page. In the upper left-hand corner, there's also an Edit button that allows you to go back in and edit the configuration. Providing you're happy with the configuration, you will click the Request Quote icon that looks like a yellow notepad in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. That brings up a message that reads, "Thank you for requesting a quote. We will be in touch soon." Click Continue, and you'll see a note letting you know your request was successfully submitted. Click Continue one last time, and you'll be taken back to the configuration results. The quote request icon in the upper right should be gone. At this point, the configuration has been sent to our internal staff for review.